Hello, my name's Kent Battenfield, and I want to welcome y'all back to another episode of Horses and Archery. And today we're going to get into riding and how I prepare my horses for mounted archery and myself, and in particular the Comanche style mounted archery and plain style Indian mounted archery. And I want to clarify something. There's no documented evidence. All we got is first-hand accounts and second, third-hand accounts. There's nothing documented anywhere to say this is how they did it. This is how they used their locks. This is how they drew. This is how they did this. All it is basically we know they did certain things, but we don't know exactly how they did certain things. And the extent of everything that they did do. I'm going to use this as an example. In the mid to 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, my great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather, they dealt in horses. And my grandpa came in kind of late on the deal, late 1880s, early 1890s. And so he was kind of young, but he told me that his older brothers used to go in and get a string of horses, and what they would do is they would tie them head to tail. They would tie the lead rope on one horse to the tail of the other horse, and they would get a string of horses like that. And what he would do is he would have his riding horse. His older brothers would have their riding horses that they would lead these string of ponies with, string of horses with, and what they would do is take the first one that's dallied off that's tied onto his riding horse, and they would desensitize him and fool with him and get him to where you could ride him as they're coming home. Okay, and once he got to where he could saddle him up and ride him, he would take his saddle horse, tie it to the back, to the very last horse, and then he would take the horse he just started and go to the next one, and they would continue on down until he got them all rode. And he said most of the time, by the time he got home, he would have all the horses saddle broke. Well, I know that they did this. Being a trainer, I believe I could do it. And I know he did it, but we don't know exactly how he done it. We don't know the process, how he did it. How did he hold his reins? How did he tie him off exactly? How did he tie him off? How did they get him to the point that he could get a saddle on? All this riding down the road, covering ground. He didn't stop and do this. He was covering ground while he did it. I know it's possible, and I could kind of guess about how he did it, and I know how I would do it. And I could recreate that in the way that I could do it. But my grandpa had a first-hand account. He was a first-hand account, but there was no details, specific details, other than this. They did it, and that's how we are with this Comanche style archery. Okay, we have first-hand accounts, but we don't have minute details of exactly what happened and how they did it. My grandfather was born in the late 1800s, and most of everybody that's saying, well, we asked my grandpa, we asked this and that, kind of in the same boat that I am. No documented, it's just word of mouth. So anyway, with that being said, I use this as an example also. A lot of the first-hand accounts, they would say, well, you can't hardly believe everything they say. Well, 10 years ago, if you would have went to the one of the traditional archers, okay, target archers, if you'd have went to a competition and said, there's a group of people that can get on a horse and gallop by 3 targets at a full run and hit all 3 targets. You know, they would sit there and say, well, how long, is it gallop or whatever? He says, well, they're doing it in a total. The run is a total of 7 seconds. And he shoots all 3 arrows in less than 3 seconds. And he hits all 3. You think they would have believed that? They wouldn't even believe that they could have loaded 3 arrows and shot them accurately, let alone in 6 seconds, let alone do it on the back of a horse at full gallop. But here it is, 3 targets sitting in the middle of the track, full gallop, 1, 2, 3. Or how about 2 targets 20 meters apart with a 3-inch bullseye on each one? You ride by at a full gallop and you hit the bullseye on both targets. You think they'd believe something like that? Don't know. What do you believe? Or gallop by 2 men and be able to put 2 arrows in both of them's chest. I don't know. What do you think? You think they'd believe that? I don't believe that most of the traditional archers would have believed something like that 10, 15 years ago. Maybe so. But anyway, that's what we're dealing with. You're dealing with first-hand accounts, and a lot of the first-hand accounts they're unbelievable. I mean, they're really hard for us to believe nowadays. But how we need to approach that is saying, well, they did it, and we need to figure out how they did it. And it's just like right now, if y'all were to go back and tell somebody what you just saw on video that's documented, if you were to tell them, they would say, how in the world? They would say, well, how in the world would they would have done that? Well, it's documented. And what I'm doing right here is documenting how it's done. So that's what we're working on. You're not only going to be able to see it done, you're going to see how it's done, and you'll be able to do it yourself. So I'm going to show y'all how I introduce my horses to leg cues. In mounted archery, you have to, in this Comanche style archery, you have to ride with your legs, your belly button down, okay, and shoot with your belly button up. And lots of documentation, first-hand documentation, or first-hand accounts of the Comanches just riding their horses just with their legs. They didn't even use reins. They just rode them just with the legs. This is how I start a horse on that, or one of the ways. I'll go into more detail in other videos if y'all are interested. But right now, I'm just going to show you this. This is a green horse. She rides. I mean, you can trail ride and stuff on her, but she's really not trained. She's just, you can sit on her and you can ride her around. And so what we're doing right now is I'm training her. And I'm training her to give the leg pressure, okay, to move when I cue with my feet. So what I do is I cue with my foot first, and then I reinforce with the reins. And you have to do it in that order. If you do the reins first and reinforce with the foot, you'll never get it. So one of the ways that I do that is I'll set these 4 cones up, and I'll put them in a clover leaf pattern like this. And I'll run a clover leaf pattern. You see how I'm going around that cone. I'll go on up, go around the next cone, and then I cut across the middle. And it's all left-hand turns. So every time we get to a cone, I cue her to turn left. Okay, and I keep doing this until I don't have to use any rein. Okay, I'm just reinforcing with the rein if I need to. I'll cue my foot first, and then reinforce her with the reins. And as soon as she gets to where she's halfway understanding it, like right there, I let go of the reins completely, and I'm just using my feet. And as soon as she starts to halfway understand it, I will transition to just feet. and if I have to, I'll lift the reins up. If I don't, I won't. And so this is how I kind of introduce them to them. And once they get started with this and understand this and kind of settling down just a little bit, then I'll go ahead and take my bow out and and do it with my bow. And of course, I didn't mention, but once they get going to the left down, okay, once she understands that left hand cue, I will turn around and we will go to the right. And I'll do it at a walk and a trot. And here in a minute, I'm going to start shooting, and I will shoot right-handed, and I will shoot left-handed. And you have to remember that this isn't just for your horse. You're in training too. You're practicing too. We're kind of killing two birds with one stone. I'm learning how to, or practicing how to ride the horse and shoot at the same time. So many people just sit on a horse. They're kind of like sitting up there like a crash dummy, going down the track, shooting their bow. And the horse is just maintains whatever speed direction it feels it needs to do, you know. That's why a lot of times they have to use the track. You have to use barriers where they're just going down like an alley, because most of the time these guys, they just let their horse go and you just shoot and stop when you get to the end. I don't like doing that. I do it because that's how most of your mounted archery tracks are, but I want to be able to control my horse. So that's why I like this style of riding. And then once you get on the hunt track, it where there's no barriers and you're having to weave in and out and around targets. If you can't do this with your horse, if you can't control them with your feet, if you had to constantly stop and grab the reins and change directions and then head, by a target, you're not going to do very good. And you might be wondering why even try to learn how to shoot left-handed. Well, it's a martial art, and if you want to treat it as a martial art, and you need to learn how to shoot right-handed and left-handed. If an enemy was trying to approach you, if you was on horseback and they were coming up behind you, they would come up behind you. If you're right-handed, they would come up behind you on your right side, just quartering into you on your right side, and it'll be really hard for you to get a shot off at that angle. You couldn't hardly turn to get a shot over your right shoulder, being right-handed. But if you can swap your bow hands real quickly, you got it covered. So this is one of the drills that I do to learn how to swap from left to right pretty quickly. And what a lot of people do, they'll drag the bow across the horse when they're trying to swap from the left to the right. And what I mean by that is the tip of their bow will go over like that, and they'll grab it. Well, what happens is when you go over like that, you don't want to do that, because you have to turn your bow after you get it across, and it just really slows you down. It's really awkward. So if you take the bottom of your bow and tip it across the horse's neck and just kind of clap your hands together like that, the bow's already in position to shoot, and your hand is actually exactly where it needs to be on the handle. Okay, so you need to get used to swapping from side to side like that, and this is one of the ways that you can do that. Just set your horse up, and it doesn't matter if the targets are, quartering away from you like this is, or straight out to the side or behind you. It doesn't matter, just whatever you want to practice shooting. But anyway, the main thing is when you cross the bottom of the bow over first. Clap your hands together, and then nock your arrow. Now, if you notice, I'm shooting on the left-hand side of this bow, both right-handed and left-handed. When I switch to the left hand, I'm still shooting on the left-hand side of the bow. I'm doing this because this is a Comanche style bow. This bow is the string is offset. There's only one knock point on the top of the limb, and what it does is it kicks the string over to the left-hand side, so you don't have as much archer's paradox. It's almost straight even with the left-hand side of the bow, the way I got mine rigged up. So if I were to shoot left-handed and swap to the right-hand side of the bow with my arrow, I would have a massive archer's paradox. It just really kicked the fire out of that arrow. So I stay on the left-hand side, and I just would think that that's what the Comanches did. I would believe it would make sense to me. It's a lot more accurate way of shooting. But that's what I do to start to kind of get practiced at swapping hands. Now, once you get practiced at swapping hands, you can start doing this drill. Okay, so if you notice, I have two targets out there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a figure eight around those targets, and I'll shoot right-handed around one, left-handed around the other. Now, again, this is a green horse. This horse has never done these figure eights like this. I generally, whenever I'm teaching a horse something for the first time or second time or whatever, when I'm training a horse, I try to put my equipment on and ride with the equipment and shoot with it. My bow and my quivers, my arrows, have it all there. So the reason being is that when you're cueing these horses, you're going to cue slightly different. You're going to sit slightly different while you're shooting than you are if you're not shooting. So if you get this horse to where he's doing figure eights real nicely and real pretty, and then you add a bow to it, it's going to be a little off. Okay, you're going to have to do a certain amount of retraining. Not a whole lot. It's not that big of a deal, but it's better to just do it right off the bat. It accomplishes two things. You learn to ride the horse while shooting. When the horse makes a mistake, you're correcting it. You're correcting it while you have the bow out, while you're shooting, all at the same time. You're actually having to ride with your feet and shoot with your hands. You're putting that into practice. So when you're out on the track, if you're on a hunt track and your horse makes a mistake, something might catch his eye and make him nervous or whatever, and he wants to move to the right or move to the left, you can actually correct that and not mess your whole run up. And like I said, this is not going to look pretty. It's not supposed to look pretty. This is the first time the horse has done this. But what this is doing, what this is accomplishing, is the horse learning to listen to your leg cues under pressure. And you being able to shoot under pressure and in less than ideal situations. You learning to be able to shoot while you're trying to control a horse that may not actually be completely under control. And if the horse gets kind of excited, all you have to do is just slow it down a little bit. Just stop and start over again. But don't be too quick to stop. And what I mean by that is allow the horse a little bit of time to work through its issues before you just stop and regroup. Allow it time to make the right decisions. And this horse kind of got keyed up a little bit, and then settled back down. I kind of cut that out because I didn't want the video to go on too long. But if you notice right there, she just settled back down again. And I'm going to go ahead and end this lesson. But if you do this, if you train yourself and train your horse in this way, not only the end result, you're going to have a very well trained horse, but your shooting is going to improve dramatically. It's you're going to be amazed at how well your shooting will be under all kinds of situations, and you'll be able to go to a track that you've never seen before and or never shot before, and still do really well in it. But this style of archery, this Comanche style and Plains Indian style archery, I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying it. These the way that I'm doing these things differ a lot from the European styles and the way the Europeans train. And I just believe this is the way the Native Americans did it. They got out there on the horses, they played around, they shot their bows, had a lot of fun, trained their horses, and became really top-notch warriors.